Good afternoon, and thank you again for joining me on today's executive Q&A session. My name is Tom Davis. I'm the acting chief executive at the moment. As with all these events, please feel free to ask your questions in the question and answer box. We will endeavour to answer those in the live event, and if not, send response to the individual or otherwise afterwards. I would start by saying that I was hoping that this week's message would be a little bit more light-hearted and positive, but the events of the weekend and the escalation across the country and the rest of the world with the pandemic has put a little bit of that festive cheer on hold. I'm joined today by Marcus, our Chief Operating Officer, and reflecting the pressures that the system is under, I'm going to have to leave you at 3 o'clock to join a national escalation call for the ambulance sector. So hopefully I will get through as many questions as I can, but then Marcus will be with you for the full session to answer further. So I think one of the things I'm very keen to focus on is about how we look after ourselves as people and as human beings. I'm hoping that many of you will get some rest over the coming weeks and be able to enjoy, in the context of being able to enjoy both a rest and Christmas with your loved ones and dear ones. I know that Saturday's coronavirus update was a blow to everyone, but there are positives and the vaccine is on its way, and we have achieved a huge amount for both keeping ourselves and our communities and our patients safe over the last year. But please do look after your own well-being and that of your colleagues. It's stressful at work and it's stressful at home, and there is support available, and all the details for that are on our Need to Know site and through conversations with your colleagues and your management teams. Before I pass over to Marcus, I just wanted to focus on one aspect that I'm very passionate about, and that is the wearing of correct PPE, not in clinical areas necessarily, where we know we do a good job in the main, but in all other areas, in non-clinical areas. I'm really keen that we see the importance of wearing masks in our vehicles when we're sharing lifts, in our vehicles at work, but also in our stations and in our interactions across the organisation through this time. So we'll see over the next coming days a focus on mask wearing and correct PPE wearing in all circumstances. This is because the risk is increasing, the risk to ourselves, the risk to our colleagues, the risk to our communities, and the risk to our families, as well as our patients. So please, I would encourage you to look out for those communications. And if you aren't in a mask yourself or your colleagues aren't in a mask, politely ask why, and to ensure that your safety and your colleagues' safety is paramount. So I'm going to pass over to Marcus to just articulate some of the things that we're doing as an organisation in response to the changes over the weekend. And then when I come back afterwards, I've got a few positives to look forward to in 2021. So Marcus, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom, and good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you for joining. So yeah, look, it is really busy. I've said on some of the previous sessions that I've been involved in, we're now in month 14 of a really pressurised ambulance service, probably more so than we've seen in a number of years, moving from winter COVID, summer COVID, and now into winter and COVID. And some would even dare argue that winter isn't truly amongst us at this moment in time because of the weather. It's also, while we've experienced COVID for a number of months, actually still also different. And it's different because we've seen different changes in terms of tiering, lockdown. We've seen restrictions ease, then come back on. We're now seeing, I think, the effect of I guess, pressure within systems, pressure within hospitals. And so for most organisations, and we are no different, whether in health and social care, is the impact of how that is for you as individuals, i.e. the impact to our ability to have you at work, in the workplace, and for you to be protected and looked after as well. And that means for us, and we see it particularly in some of the London hospitals, the effect of being able to have sufficient staffing. Now, we've had a number of contingency plans in place, and they have been enacted in order for us to be able to maintain, I guess, our response to patients. But importantly, when we look at response to patients, it's also in areas to make sure that we look to reduce the amount of late finishes, make sure we look to get rest breaks. So there's a number of reasons when we talk about this. It's not just about kind of response time. It's a whole, I guess, a whole collective set of actions in order to support and to do that. We know fully well we have a legal duty in terms of keeping you safe, and yourselves have that kind of shared, I guess, responsibility in terms of, and as Tom was saying, the ability to talk to and speak with colleagues related to any concern or areas for improvement and support as well. We are doing well, and I know it doesn't feel like it, but we are doing well in terms of, I guess, the lateral flow testing, about the testing arrangements. We know that vaccination will come online after Christmas. That's our latest kind of information into January, and we know that the changing of the prioritisation, we probably learn and understand about as much in short flow from the news itself, i.e. the timing is very short and we respond very quickly to really understand what those look like as well. In terms of, I guess, COVID and the impact, and I can see a couple of questions that have come into the chat box as well, is we do constantly review, and we have to constantly review information. And there's a balance between everything here, which is how do we maintain, in effect, we are essential work. So what we do as an organisation, we are essential work. PPE, we know PPE has been shown, particularly in high risk areas. So they've done a review, particularly in hospitals, where they were looking at high risk areas where PPE is used, and the conversion of that into staffing kind of concerns is low, i.e. if the correct PPE is worn, it's worn effectively, and it's social distancing, hand washing, and all of those things are followed, then actually the rate of transmission is lower. Where we don't, and in terms of what they describe as general ward level care, then that becomes the balance. Now, from our point of view, we are constantly reviewing our COVID safe practice, and I think from Tom's description, and I would support that, we can write as many instructions as we want, we can write as many posters as we want, but actually it's something we have to look to do ourselves. You know, I can only say, and whatever we think, you know, COVID is very real, COVID is very present. That's not to insult people, but when we talk about adherence to PPE, I think sometimes we look directly at that being around clinical areas. Actually, the ability to wear appropriate protection and follow appropriate guidance covers clinical and non-clinical areas, and that's where the COVID secure element comes in as well. And that's just asking us to think about how do we maintain that, and how do we really focus supporting each other in that, because it is a long haul, and I think, you know, doesn't matter whether the vaccine actually starts in January or not. The reality is this won't be over by the end of January, and we know that actually this will roll into 2021, and therefore our new ways of working and I guess our new normal, as we would describe it, is going to be here for forever, really, in terms of some of it, until we really understand. And we know that brings with it a number of challenges. I think we also learn and we also look within that, and I'm conscious of the question in the chat, which is really good, is when you start to get the tiering, what does that mean in how we modify and how we look at our business? And it is difficult, and there's the balance, and I guess I share with you some of the decision making, the balances that we go through, is how we afford and how we look at appropriate level of protection, restrictions, guidance, and how do we also make sure we remain agile and flexible enough in that to make sure that we can respond to increasing in demand. How do we respond to support colleagues? So there's a whole thing in there about how do we risk assess, how do we look through our business continuity plans in order to make a judgment of how do we make essential service judgments, how do we put in protection and guidance. I think the commonality out of all of those, and time again, this comes back to actually social distancing, hand washing, use of appropriate protection, whether with a patient or without a patient, appropriate cleaning, appropriate decontamination. Out of all of the guidance that we've ever had, that is always the consistent message, and that is a continuous level of practice regardless of tiering, because obviously tiering in terms of restrictions are designed to bring the R rate or the infection number down, and we do provide and the level 2 water repellent masks. You then look at level 3 PPE, so that the protection is more than cloth masks and cleaning, etc. So all of those really do look into that as well. So I think I just I guess reiterate and summarise for that with Tom. The other bit, just in case anyone had kind of forgotten, we also leave the EU very shortly, and you'll have seen by the COVID may have caused lorries to be stacked up at Dover, but we've also seen some of that around Felixstowe, some of that around Harwich as well. And the reality within all of those is it is a clear and kind of present effect in reality of a trial run of what it could be like in terms of customs. Now, from our point of view, we have established plans now from Brexit and leaving the EU. We have been able to tabletop and test some of those, and initially from our point of view, the ability for us to get everything we need to, we're not anticipating any challenges whatsoever, and as the weeks progress, we will then see whether that has an impact, but we have a number of plans within those. So we will update as we will every time there is something that we believe you need to know. But I think from a planning perspective, we are as prepared as we can be with the information that we have along that now. So Tom, thank you. I'm going to hand back to yourself.
Thanks, Marcus. Before I mention some of the things to look forward to for 2021, I just want to really link the mask and PPE issue to what we've been saying about our culture. We've been asking people to speak up, to speak out, and to stop it. And it's no different with our use of PPE. And I think if we all work together, we will keep each other and our patients and our colleagues and our families safe. Clearly, these are unprecedented times, but there are some simple measures that have been in place for a long time now that, if complied with, and I'm talking about every level of the organisation here, I expect my management teams to be setting the example, and I expect everyone to be thinking for themselves as healthcare professionals in how they conduct their self-protection with the equipment. But if you feel that people aren't compliant with masks and therefore you're not safe, then please speak up and be heard by those that you speak up to. If you see others around you not complying, please speak out and either work with them or those around you if you don't feel able to speak directly to them, so that we can help support each other in doing the right thing. And I think if you are a healthcare professional, especially those of us with a registration, and you can honestly look at yourself and believe that you're doing the right thing, then fantastic. But if you're a healthcare professional with or without a registration, and when you have a good look at your practice, you believe that you could do things better, then please stop doing it wrong and do it right for your sake, if not for anyone else's sake. So as I said, I mentioned some good news stories, and then I will pick up the second question. So some good news for 2021, I hope. Firstly is we've spoken briefly in some of these sessions, but also I've received a number of emails to the Chief Executive inbox about how we're going to recognise the work that staff have done in this unprecedented year. John Syton, the Director of HR, is leading on a piece of work which we hope to bring to you in January, which will look to refresh our recognition and reward scheme for staff, but in particular light of the last year and the pandemic. I know that other trusts have already made moves to do this, and it is not that we don't have that intention, but as I hope everyone has been aware, there's been multiple pressures on this organisation, and we want to get this right. We want to involve staff in choosing what the right recognition and reward might look like, and that's what I've asked John to do into the new year. We've also continued to invest, and a couple of weeks ago we spoke about the electronic patient care record, which project will commence in the new year. But we've also signed off £2 million worth of investment in buildings, as well as with IT and other projects. This investment is to help improve the day-to-day experience of our staff, and therefore the benefit to our patients and our communities. And we'll continue to share more details as we go into the new year. I'll just pick up the question. So staff are unlikely to wear PPE if it increases rather than diminishes their risk of cross-infection. I and other staff have repeatedly raised the issue through Datex system and direct email to the exec team about the flimsy, not fit for purpose plastic aprons that were issued. They blow up over head and face even with the slightest breeze, and a description of one contact with 17 times that happened, and absolutely that then increases risk of cross-infection. I know from the work that I did previously with the infection control team and the national team that this has been an issue that's been raised. It has been listened to and solutions have been sought. I think I'm more than happy to go back to the team and ask them to review that, but the stores and the PPE stock that we use is obviously following all national guidance, and it is done with safety in mind. So I think there's two things here. Is one, I'm assured that we're following national guidance, and two is I can follow this up because it's not necessarily an issue that I thought was ongoing. I can follow it up to ensure that we have done everything we can do, and you know, that is the important thing, that as an organisation we acknowledge the concerns and we are able to demonstrate that we're doing everything we can do, because some of these challenges, unfortunately, have no simple solution. So, as we look for any further questions, and please, if you don't feel you want to ask a question in the live event, then the oc.east email account is regularly reviewed, and we try and respond on a timely basis to people as they raise their questions to me and any of the other exec director team. So just pause for any further questions. So just to reiterate, the challenges are being thrown at us all the time as a healthcare service. The pandemic doesn't see dates, it doesn't see timelines, and you know, we know from our knowledge of any viruses are able to do what we've seen over the last couple of days, and that is adapt to the environment as much as we adapt to the environment as humans. It has been a tough year, and for this organisation it's been tough for more reasons than many. And that in itself creates stress, both at work and for people at home. It is important that you spend any time you can with your family and friends, even at this time where the restrictions are in place. Please look after yourself and those that you rely on for support outside of work. But also, as I've said, please support each other in work in keeping safe. think about how you are using your protective equipment, both in clinical and non-clinical environments. Think about how your colleagues are using it, and help each other in doing the right thing for yourself, your communities and your patients. Above all, I'd like to thank everyone for their hard work this year, responding positively to the changes that we've had to make in the circumstances that we find ourselves. As I said, if you can, take some time to relax with friends and family, but in everything that you do, please stay safe. And on that note, I wish everyone a Merry Christmas.